All right, let's start with the gentleman over here. This guy. All right, we'll come to you, sir. Please, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi.
So, I believe we've spoken a lot about career, but we've not actually touched on if it is based on talent. So, I was hoping we could look into that. And in retrospect, I mean, for example, a musical career, a football career, what happens then?
Sorry, please hold on to the mic. What's your question? If you're to, I understand, but if you're to put in a question,
Okay, good. So, what happens to the career formation when it is based on talent, not the corporate world or perhaps human resources, public relations, talent?
I still feel like I want an underlying question. Is there anything about everything we've talked about today that makes you feel like a different set of rules should apply?
Yes,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah, tell me more.
Okay, good. So, personally speaking, I'm an artist, so I make music.
Yeah.
So, most of my life, I wanted to make music. So, I knew I wanted to be in front of people,
Yeah.
and in the TV, right? People should watch me.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have to think about it so much. And at a very young age, I started chasing it,
Yeah.
and started working towards the path for it. So, good news for me, perhaps, I've been able to diversify. But because I figured, oh, that's not the only thing I'm good at, or that's not the only thing I want to do. So at this point, but generally speaking, for others, what if their career path is based on talent? What do they do? How do they, create a formation around it? Do you
Well,
get it now?
yeah, I do. There's a little more clarity. I don't think any of the things we said do not apply. For example, the principles of deep work. If you make music, you also need to do deep work. You need to, everything I said, for example, about studying the classics. There's a very clear difference between people who are exposed to a wide variety of artists and sounds from different cultures, from across, as far back as possible, across different historical epochs, and those who aren't. Because you need to be inspired. Then the process of actually creating, it takes a lot of time. It requires you being all in. And I mean, of course, there are stories of people who just randomly stroll into the studio and in 4 or 5 minutes, they've come up with something and that's a global banger. But that was not the first thing they did. They've probably been making music for years. And that's the compounding effect. They get to a point where it's just, they internalize all those things. So it's everything we've said about deep work and the principles of how to do your career well, about surrounding yourself with people who are better than you, who make you want to be better. They all apply to music. And think of talent as raw material. It's useless in and of itself. But when you build on it, when you hone it, when you refine it, then it takes different forms. But you also have to define, what do I want the final form of this talent to be? How do I want to use it? For what do I even want to use this talent? You're a musician and you could use your talent for very many different things. What is the ultimate why for why you do music? You have to think about it. Why is it that there are some artists that once they encounter fame, that's the end of them. They are dead, they are done because they don't know how to manage that and they don't know how to manage the resources and the fame that have come their way. So maybe because there's no why, maybe because they're not thinking of it as something that should fulfill those 5 things we've talked about. Meaning, learning. Maybe it's just the earning parts that they focus on. Legacy. Maybe because they don't focus on all of that. So if you're an artist who is well-rounded in this way, then you're probably going to outcompete and have much more long-term success than those who do not think about things that way. And if you want to look at the biography of anyone who is successful, read their Wikipedia profile. They are probably only successful at the middle. The end of their lives are just miserable. They don't have any sort of long-term success. So as an artist, it's very important thinking about long-term success. You said you've diversified. I guess that's also in a bid to sustainably do what you want to do and to do it for a very long time.
Sure.
So that's what I think.
Sure. Well, I think you've been able to touch on it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go to Mara.
Okay, what I wanted to ask, when you spoke about how to identify a great career, you said the first thing you spoke about was learning. articulated this concentric circle thing where you said comfort zone and then zone of proximity and then panic zone. And so my question is, how do you identify the panic zone? Now, this is why I'm asking that is, I want to understand if that evolution from comfort zone to panic zone is linear and linear or orthogonal. So linear meaning, if I'm a software engineer, if I am a junior software engineer, right, and I see some complex architecture, technical architecture for how, say, Stripe is built, global company like Stripe is built. Maybe I don't have the competence at that level in my life to build that kind of thing, and that could be a definition of a panic zone, right? But then, if I try that, I'll fail. It won't come out well, but I'll probably learn something, and I'll know what I need to learn and optimize to evolve my career. Orthogonally would be, I'm a business person, or all I know is business or marketing, and then I want to do the same thing, like understand Stripe's technical architecture. Like, there's no way you're going to do that. You don't have the base foundational knowledge. So I want to understand how do you identify, so for the business person, I think that's very clear, that's probably a panic zone, but how do you identify what the panic zone for you is as a career person trying to evolve?
Yeah, in some ways you articulated some of it. You know, your panic zone is you have absolutely no competence in that specific domain, and if you're put in there, you're just going to fail. There's absolutely nothing that you can do that would not be counterproductive when you're put in there. You know, to use the example of trying to build Stripes, like the basic infrastructure that powers Stripe, as a junior software engineer who maybe just graduated from Unilag, it's reasonable, like it's far out in your future, but maybe, you know, it's just too far out for you. Maybe what you should do is go join a company that builds similar things like Stripe does and learn, expose yourself to that learning. Even in the context of that company, there's still so many things you're not going to know. You're still going to be incompetent, you're going to have to be coached, you're going to have to be mentored, but that is a place that provides you with scaffolding. You have a manager, you have colleagues who review your code, who review every pull request that you make and give you feedback. That way you're getting better. And if you do that for long enough time, you realize that going now to build a Stripe, for example, is not that far-fetched. At best, that would become your new zone of proximal development. You know, and maybe building rockets would now become where you're in your panic zone. So it's almost like every time, and that's the great thing about the ZPD. You know, at every point in your career, you would always remain in the zone of proximal development. The content of what you're doing is different and will continue to improve, but the goal is, as much as possible, remain in your zone of proximal development, and whatever your zone of proximal development is would be someone else's panic zone. Elon Musk is building and sending rockets to space. That's his zone of proximal development. He tried 3 times the first time and failed. He tried the 4th time and succeeded, and now he's just, you know, he's building, you know, rockets that are reusable. He's in his zone of proximal development. I would never try that. I don't know that anyone in this room would try that, because that's just panic. If there's anything worse than panic zone, that's what that is for us, and you can't just make your leap there. So the goal is, do everything you can to continue to stay in your zone of proximal development by increasingly taking on more challenging tasks. The more you get used to it, take on even increasingly more challenging tasks till you get comfortable with them. Yeah. All right, let's come. The lady in the... Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Iwaba Angel Mary. So I just pray I don't get this question wrong. Based on, I watched a YouTube video, your YouTube video, about how to get a right career path. And the question I want to ask is also related to what we are saying now. There's a statement you said that people who actually are entrepreneurs, they actually have this concept of creating a system from a job which they were doing before they left that job. Now, when I'm probably simply saying that I'm doing a job now and I want to probably be an entrepreneur, how do I create this system without being in a job, per se, as an entrepreneur? How do I create the structures and systems to make it like functional? Because I know like entrepreneurs are like small businesses, small enterprises. Like, how will I create this system to make it work? To make my career path more feasible for me?
So is your question that as a business owner, how do you figure out how to build systems and structures?
Yes, without having
having prior experience from a job?
Yes.
Oh, I mean, fundamentally, part of what it means to be an entrepreneur is that you're learning as you're going. You know, there's no entrepreneur who has it figured out when they start. So you start with, I mean, if you decide to build a specific business, my assumption would be there's a level of competence or knowledge that you have that's better than what most people have, and that's a place that you start from. That's where you plant the flag in the sand, you know, and then you start to expand from there. And that expansion means you're going to learn new skills. For example, if you start to run a business that's just a one-person business, you have no business learning how to manage a team, you know, how to build structures that involve other people. But as you start to grow and you employ people, that's something you need. You probably need an accounting system. You need a system of reporting, you know, to ensure that people aren't stealing from you and that reports are cohesive. So part and parcel of what it means to be an entrepreneur is you're a quick learner. You're learning things on the fly. As problems make themselves manifest, you're learning new things. You're hiring people who know things that would help mitigate those problems. You even need to learn how to hire people. You know, in the context of it, there's no job you can do that can prepare you for being an entrepreneur, except you don't want to be a successful entrepreneur. But if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, there's no warm-up. It's useful. I'm not saying it can be useful. It can be useful for a lot of people. You get domain experience and knowledge in the industry you're building in. But there's nothing you can do that would adequately prepare you for being an entrepreneur. You have to learn everything on the fly. You have to make your own mistakes. You have to seek out best practices that are out there. That's what it means to be an entrepreneur, and that's why not everyone is an entrepreneur. Yeah. All right.
Hi guys, my name is Tay, and my question is very simple actually. So we have established that a career is a path or a way, and we have also distinguished between a job and a career. So my question now is it possible to have more than one path? Meaning, is it possible to have more than one career?
Is it possible to have more than one career? Like, practically, is it possible? Absolutely. I think there are people who, you know, start out as sports people. At some point, they pivot and they embark on a new career. Is your question even, is it possible to have more than one career simultaneously?
Simultaneously.
It might be possible, and I'm sure there are outliers and people who have multiple careers simultaneously, but it almost never works, especially if you're really young, because you can't be all in on two. Is it possible to have more than two jobs? Is it possible to have more than two endeavors within a career spec? Absolutely. But two careers, I strongly doubt how effective that is. So maybe you have a job, but you're pursuing, for example, there's people who, they have a job, maybe, you know, doing whatever, but they want to pursue a career in music, and they're spending all of that time. I wouldn't describe that as having two careers. You know, a career is something that you're all in on, that you're working actively to build a reputation in. And so it's incredibly difficult for you to have more than one path that you're pursuing with exactly the same intensity. At its core, and this is a best practice, at its core, even if you're someone who describes yourself as a multi-potentialite, you can do very many different things. Although I'm very careful when people say, oh, I can do very many different things. I don't think so. You know, usually I don't think so. But if that's you and that's honestly who you are, then there needs to be, the technical term is an organizing principle, like a pivot around which all your endeavors revolve. And anyone who takes a look at it, even for you when you take a look at it, it doesn't feel like you're being pulled in different directions. It looks like everything you're doing is pushing into one circle that is your career, that's your identity, that's your purpose. So that's what I think, but it's very, very, very difficult. I don't recommend anyone, I don't encourage anyone, to try to build multiple careers at the same time. It's almost always bad strategy. Yeah. All right.
All right. Hi, Kennedy. Hi, everybody. My name is Yolanda, and I think he already asked my question in a kind of way, but I'm just gonna ask it the way it was in my head. So maybe there's something else that could be said. So I was gonna ask, for somebody who is a multifaceted person, where you have interest in a couple of things, not like a lot of things, maybe 2-3 things, and it's just like different things, right? But what would you recommend? Would you say pick one and forgo other ones, or if there's a way that you can streamline them or kind of like tie them together, like what would you recommend as a way to do that? And I think my second question is for someone who is going into a second career, like you have built your life around one particular career and now you want to change. How do you deal with imposter syndrome in such situation? Thank you.
Okay. So on the first, if you're someone who is, interested in multiple different things, the first thing I try to do when people tell me that is I try to question their interest in multiple different things. And because what it means to be interested in multiple different things is not you saying the words, I'm interested in multiple different things. It is you having competency, some degree of competency in multiple different things. It is you putting enough skin in the game in multiple different things. So it's not enough to look at someone on social media and admire what they do and be like, I'm interested. Heck, I'm interested in so many things, honestly. I'm interested, cerebrally I'm interested. Have I taken any meaningful step in all of those directions? Absolutely. Will I ever? Maybe not. I will probably never do. So the first step is always to question your interest in multiple things. But let's say you pass that first layer of questioning and you realize, I'm deeply interested. I can't go to sleep without thinking about these 1, 2, 3 different things. Then tinker. I completely encourage you, especially if you're young, tinker around. Like, go as deep as you can, especially if you have the capacity to pursue all 3 of them or all of them very deeply. Pursue them. Spend some time exploring those, because in doing that, you would actually start to find a pattern for the sort of things that you enjoy. You probably would ultimately prioritize one over the other. You will realize that you're spending way more time on one over the other. You realize that a lot of your identity, the things that you wake up thinking about, that you go to sleep thinking about, when you see things, you start to interpret them in a different way. 3 people could come into this room and we're all looking at the same thing, but we're interpreting it very differently. But whatever lens with which you interpret the things you see, maybe that's where your interest truly lies. So if you're really that person who genuinely has interest, not you saying, oh, I'm interested in this other thing because it looks cool. You've actually dipped your feet. You've put some work in. You've shown skin in the game. You've experienced the difficulty that comes with that thing. Because the problem usually is we say we're interested in many things because it's easy to say. But when we dip our feet and it's difficult, we run away. So if that's the case, then don't even tell me you're interested in many different things, because you're not. You like the idea of many different things, but you're not. But if that's definitely the case for you, Yolanda, tinker around. I completely encourage as many people as possible to tinker around. You'll figure out what patterns form. But don't think, like, if you're 50 and you're tinkering around, like, it's not a good look, Like, it doesn't make you feel good. So don't tinker around for too long. Don't be indecisive. That's also another thing. It won't happen automatically. At some point, you have to be a decisive person. You have to be like, well, there's risks with this, but I'm going to decide. I was talking about CEOs earlier and said CEOs are people who have perspectives. But guess what? Another thing that CEOs do, and that's probably all they do in their jobs, is CEOs just make decisions. That's all they do. Like, they work 15 hours a day making decisions across very many different things, and we pay them hundreds of millions of dollars to just make decisions. So it's worth it to be a decisive person. Like, the world rewards that when you're a decisive person. And decisive people aren't people who don't make mistakes. They are not people who don't get things wrong. But decisive people, the only quality that decisive people have is that they don't stop deciding. At every point, they make a decision. That's all you need to be a decisive person. You don't need to be right or wrong. Second question is, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? I've realized that if you believe enough in what it is you're trying to do, you actually don't care. You don't care too much. You're just obsessed with that thing. And, oh, what will people say? My aesthetic has changed. I'm changing my LinkedIn. People will be like, are you really serious about it? You honestly don't care about those things. I've realized from my personal experience. Because you really like what you're doing and you can't think of yourself doing anything else. And when you communicate it to people, people can actually see people can see you come alive in a different way. And that's something that working on something that you're passionate about does. It wakes you up in a way that's different. Many of us have friends who are doing a job that they just hate. And they are miserable morning till evening. But when they start to work on, in the evening, something that they like, maybe talking, it could be as mundane as sewing, making clothes, fashion design, they come alive. You see them, they're just more admirable. They even look more attractive physically, when they start to talk about that, that's exactly what a career should do for you. So when you're in that space, honestly, you will not have that much time to think about imposter syndrome. But even if you do, just go through it. Like, go through it. Like, you have to chew the glass, stay into the abyss, but continue to make progress anyways. So imposter syndrome is of less, priority when it comes to pursuing what you're meant for.
So I know what. Thank you very much for that. I'm just saying sometimes it's not solely based on what people think. Sometimes it could even be as a result of setbacks. Maybe you have setbacks in the career that you are stepping your foot into, and then at first you were sure, you knew that you wanted to do that, but then you staggered, and then you're like, oh, keep going.
Yeah.
Then you stagger again, and then it seems like you just keep on failing, and then you start questioning yourself: was I a fool? Did I make a wrong move by changing careers? Should I just have flourished where I was?
Yeah. Everyone who has done anything meaningful goes through that. And I'm not even saying this to motivate. That's not my job here today, to motivate anyone. But everyone goes through that. You start with this sort of like naive optimism. When you're going into something, like, oh my God, there's this new business that I will start, it will change the world. You start there, you're naively optimistic. And then you dip your feet in and you realize, oh my God, this is why no one else has done it. Because in doing it, then you have this informed pessimism. You're informed now and you get so pessimistic. This is the period where almost everyone drops off. And there's no time period. There's no boundaries to this period of informed pessimism. It depends on you, because if you're informed and pessimistic, then a lot of times people, don't stain my white, I beg. I thought this business was easy. And usually we're that too, when we don't want anything that puts a dent on us. We don't want anything that makes us look like, wow, I'm used to succeeding and now I'm failing at this. So you create a distance between that thing and yourself. And so that's why most people spend years here and never make it through, or they just quit here. But people who understand that this is par for the course, that no matter how excited you are at first, you're going to feel an equal and opposite amount of sadness and brutality once you dip your feet in. They understand, okay, I'm all in, game on, bring it on, and I'm going to do everything I can to scale through this phase. And when you get past that point of informed pessimism, you actually now get back to a point of informed optimism. So it's no longer naive optimism. You're like, okay, these are all the challenges. I've walked through this for very long. Now I'm actually excited. But I'm excited not because I'm ignorant. I'm excited now because I know what this could become. I know that working at this, what it's going to make me, because I've done this for a very long time. And it's past this point that a lot of people now start to see success. And, but usually most people drop off at the stage where they are informed and pessimistic. So, a great way to deal with imposter syndrome is just don't be that person. Understand that it's par for the course. It will happen. I promise you it would happen way worse than you think, and you will regret even starting it. Everyone feels that way. But if you keep at it, and you're someone who is reasonably competent, and you care enough about the problem, that's all it takes. If you care enough about the problem, and you're even reasonably competent, you don't need to be smart. You don't need to have graduated with a 2-1 or first class. If you care about and you're reasonably smart, you can think, you can make decisions that are reasonable, you're not doing too many stupid things at once, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. I promise you that. I promise you that. So that's my answer to the question.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right. The gentleman in front.
Okay. Good afternoon. Before I ask my question, I just want to say this has been a great public lecture series, so thank you for it. My first question, okay, I have a couple. My first question, you emphasize sticking with it. Is there a framework to quit? Like when maybe you notice it's not giving you the return on investment.
Yeah.
And if you do implement that framework, how do you soften the blow of emotionally thinking like, I invested a lot of time, energy, and attention focus onto it to make it better to move on? Now, the next question came about when you said, at 50, maybe not a good look to keep tinkering. So do you have an opinion on when there is an age to stop? To like...
It's like 32.5 once you pass that point. But on the first, is there a framework to quit? I think if all your fundamental assumptions that led you to go into something, you do everything and it proves that those assumptions were fundamentally wrong, and there's nothing you can do to steer the ship differently or to correct it, like it makes sense for you to be like, I've given this everything I can, and I'm going to go do something else, and I'm going to quit this. So the emphasis is your fundamental assumptions have to be wrong. You have to have experimented enough that, oh, I thought this was the case. I started to do this. I realized it was not the case. But then I tried these 1, 2, 3 other things to correct it. It still wasn't correct. There was the fundamental hypothesis upon which this whole house was built was false. And so it kind of has to come down because there's nothing more I can build. I think that's a reasonable framework. But what that also means is that before you start, you have to do a very good job of refining that hypothesis. It has to be sort of the most intelligent version of the hypothesis that you reasonably can come up with. That's why you have to take into account, okay, what were other attempts at doing this? What do other people who have experience, what have they done? What are they saying? What advice do they have? Why did they fail? Why did they succeed when they did? So you take all of that into account and you create your own hypothesis. And you now have to go and figure out, and that's what the exercise of building anything is. You go to figure out if your assumptions about what it is you're building or working on, or the career path you've taken is correct. And if it's not, it's fine. I mean, you can go into a career path assuming some of us, we decided we're going to be doctors because we believe we really wanted to change the world. We wanted to change healthcare. That's why I went to study medicine. And maybe you realize, or you're born in a country where that's not the case, and you realize there's very little you can do. And you do everything you can, and you realize that hypothesis falls flat in the face. You can decide, based off of this, I'm going to pivot to do something else with my life. And I think that's permissible. On the second, I don't know that there's an age. I mean, of course, at every point, there's an element of, maybe how to describe it is macro tinkering and micro tinkering. So macro tinkering is, when you're older, there's nothing that you've been able to build a reputation around. There's nothing you've worked at for more than 1 or 2 years in your life. I mean, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. But of course, if you're doing anything that's worthwhile, then you're making mistakes. There's no age cutoff for making mistakes. You're making mistakes, you're learning, you're revising, you're tinkering, but within the umbrella of that reputation, that career path that you've chosen for yourself. And it's not today I'm interested in public health, tomorrow I'm interested in being a rapper. Like, it doesn't really look good when you're that age. So I think that's what I mean. But if you commit to something, then micro tinkering is necessary. Not just is it permissible, it's incredibly necessary for you to make progress.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, the guy in the hat.
Hello. All right. Hello. My name is Adiola Prince. And I understand that not everybody's going to pioneer, right?
Yeah.
And you spoke about the things that you need to look out for when choosing a career path. And you spoke about legacy. So how exactly do you choose a career path where you can still build legacy and still partner with someone? And at the end of the day, when you retire, you're not like, I didn't build anything, right? So I didn't get to build anything. I don't have anything of my own. So after all this time, in retrospect, you look and like, okay, fine. I still built some legacy, while not being a pioneer or partnering with somebody. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't think what I meant was, be a pioneer in the strict sense of build new things that have not existed before. If anything, a legacy is not things you have for yourself, but it's things you leave with other people. And every single career path on earth allows you to do that. There's nothing that you can do, that you will do today that doesn't allow you leave behind something with other people, something that could be of eternal value in some sense. Think about it very rudimentarily. It could be what your colleagues remember you for. If you're within a particular job environment and you notice 1 or 2 young people who have high potential but maybe don't have enough knowledge, and you commit yourself to mentoring them and teaching them the things that they should know. That's legacy. You're molding, and we all can point to people who did that for us. I have so many people in my life who did that for me. I always talk about my government teacher, Mr. Meman. Maybe this is a good opportunity to tell the story for those of you who don't know. But I struggled academically for 3 years in secondary school. Terribly. I did terribly. It was, bottom 20% of my class for 3 years. And then I went to a new school and I met this man who was very authoritarian, and he taught me government, and he would always just hound me like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, vocally in front of everyone, literally embarrass me. And for me, in a bit to I need this old man to just get off my back and leave me alone. I started to do my homework because I did not love to do homework. I hated to do homework. I hated to copy notes because why do we have to copy notes? And I hated that we were doing so many subjects. So at some point, I even led a protest when I went to this school, that we shouldn't, other schools have people specialize arts or science in SS1. But why are we doing all 17 subjects? And, I got brutally punished for that. So that was the sort of person that I was at that time. But Mr. Mem really had it out for me, and he took his time, very authoritarian. And at this point, he had been in that school system for about 10 years or so. And I realized I just started to do my homework to get him off my back. And over time, a few weeks later, it didn't take up to 8 weeks, I realized I started enjoying doing my homework. I started enjoying going back home because my dad teaches political science, to go do my government homework with my dad and ask him questions and be extra thoughtful. If we're asked to write 3 pages, I'll do 2 more pages because I started to love the process. I started to use textbooks that were not essential government, that were my dad's textbooks, just because I loved that process. And that transformed me deeply. And, he went from being this authoritarian figure to, for the rest of my days in secondary school, being like a big brother who mentored me. And, he went beyond just academics. Every area of my life, he noticed when I was talking to girls and told me to stop talking to them and to focus on my books. That really was who he was. And he transformed my life very, very, very deeply. I don't think I'll be standing here if it were not for him. And guess what? I thought back then that he was way smarter than most university professors. And a part of me was even like, is this man not ambitious? Why is he still in a secondary school system? Guess what? I graduated, 13 years ago? He's still in that same school. He still teaches there. But then as I grew older, I understood what this is. It's about him finding what his calling is. If he's at a university, he's probably misdeployed. And his job is to find people like me when they are teenagers and have the tendency for truancy, but also have incredible potential, and set them right. And if you drew the potential that they had inside of them, out of them, they would go on to live meaningful lives. That's legacy. He's teaching in a very small, obscure secondary school in Calabar, but his legacy lives with me. And everywhere in this world I go to, I carry a part of that with me. And I will carry it till I die, and I'll tell my children this story. And hopefully they're inspired by that. That's a great example of legacy. So you don't need to be Elon Musk. You don't need to be a pioneer. He's not a pioneer, but in my life, he holds a position that's even way more than a pioneer will. So there's no career path, no matter what your job is, no matter what path you're on, you have it in you. You have the opportunity. And if we're not doing that, then it's for lack of trying. It's not because the opportunity to do that is not there. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I am Kelvin. This is just a clarification. You had mentioned in the course of the lecture where you said we should get used to boredom. So for a very long time, I do not like boredom. In fact, I do a lot to substitute my time. The only time I get bored is when I'm about to sleep, so it can induce sleep. So hearing that I have to get used to boredom, it's interesting. So this is to clarify. We want to get used to boredom so we can understand the space of deep thinking? Is that it? Was that where you meant? So I know that I have to go on YouTube how to get used to boredom.
It's definitely worth YouTubing. So getting used to boredom allows you, because with doing deep work, you can't do it if you're used to being stimulated. Because it requires you to sit down. And how many of us can sit down for 20 minutes and do nothing? Try that. It's very difficult. It's going to be one of the most difficult things you do. 20 minutes, even try to not think any thoughts. Don't distract yourself with thinking about an experience. Just stare at a wall for 20 minutes. It's incredibly difficult. But that's almost the level of boredom that's required for you to do deep work. It allows your brain, the the neural pathways in your head to form connections that you otherwise would not when you're stimulated, and your brain doesn't go into the state of rest, for lack of a better word, for it to do deep thinking. So boredom is to enable us focus. Because without it, if our brains are used to being stimulated, we're not going to be able to sit in a particular place and actually focus on one specific thing for very long. So that's why, we should induce boredom to allow us focus and do deep work well.
Hi, Kennedy. Hello, everyone. My question is on career breaks. What do you think about career breaks? Do you encourage them? And if you do, is there a way that it should be done so that you are not broke?
Are you trying to take a career break?
I am on a career break.
You're on a career break.
Yes.
How is that going? I'm curious. Why are you laughing?
So I majorly have two feelings about it.
Yeah.
The predominant one is that I know it's the right thing to do for me at this time. But then there's always that lingering feeling where I want to buy something because I like to buy things. But I don't want to buy it because I don't want to be broke and I don't want to go back to my parents' house.
Yeah.
So there's the fear of when do I exhaust my resources, right? On the one hand. But I also know that there's a bigger picture for me, and I feel completely positive that this was a step for me.
Why did you take a career break?
I thought I needed time to redirect my career. So I had graduated, and immediately I graduated, I started working, and I found myself in different places. But throughout last year, I was just flat, insipid, no highs, no lows, no aspirations, no ambitions, which is strange for me.
While you were still at your previous job?
Yes.
Okay.
I was still at my previous job. And strange also, my performance started suffering at that job. So I just thought that it would be good if I started the year taking some time off to understand maybe why those things happened and see if there's a better way for me to reposition myself and my career. If there are things that I need to start myself, then do that. That's fine.
Absolutely. So you want to know what I think?
Yes.
Do I think you're doing the right thing, or?
No, not even for me. Just generally, what do you think about career breaks?
I mean, there's always, and the reason why I asked about your story is because there's always context behind people taking career breaks. And every time I've heard someone take a career break, it's been like the rationale for it has been incredibly clear. And I think if people are at that point where they want to do a hard reset, I encourage it actually. Spend some time to the extent that you can afford to without suffering too much. Spend some time just realigning yourself. But it's also very important, what do you do with your career break? If you're binge watching all the series, I'm not saying don't watch it, but if you're binge watching series, then you're not really on, I don't know what you're on, but you're not really on a break like that. But it's important that it's a reflective exercise where you're assessing, and I'm sure there are probably frameworks out there that help you make the most of that time. But do I support a hard reset? Absolutely. Very necessary. And of course, when you're on that, there are times, you go on LinkedIn, you see people, I am excited to announce, and you're feeling like, oh my God, the world is leaving me behind. So please delete LinkedIn during that time so no one is pressuring you. Yeah, seriously.
The irony is that this is my most active time on LinkedIn.
Yeah?
My friend was telling me that they always see me there. What am I always doing there? Anyway, so I started a newsletter during this break. So it forces me to put out content on LinkedIn. And I don't really care for what people are doing personally.
Yeah. Maybe one good thing is also when you start, give yourself a time period. Give yourself a time. It would also force you to be intentional. If you give yourself 3 months, if you give yourself 6 months, you know how to balance rest with planning the next steps, with having fun, just so there's no lack of boundaries to it. There's no lack of borders, and 1 month spills into 2 and into 3, and then it starts another problem that you cannot solve. So, for you, how long are you on your career break for? How long have you been on it for?
So this is my ending of my second month. Mm-hmm. I think I started in late December.
Yeah.
So the length I don't know, is to be determined.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't run out of money too. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go behind.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mother Dan Egu. Some of you are wondering why I am here. Because we have a lot of youth here. I happen to be here, not by chance, but my daughter, who is in the UK, has passion for speaking to or mentoring youth, particularly. So, before I say what I want to say, can we be upstanding? I crave your indulgence so we can give Kennedy a standing ovation, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate this. Kennedy is doing a great job. Thanks so very much, Kennedy. I appreciate you on behalf of everyone seated here. You have been wonderful. You've been great. You are doing so well. Thank you. What you are giving to this generation is priceless. I appreciate the fact that you made reference to your government teacher. And that brings me to what I have in mind to talk on. Everybody here needs a mentor. It is important. As a matter of fact, it is compulsory for everyone to have a mentor. Of course, you know, for most of us, I'll say us, I don't want to say you. For most of us, our parents are old school, and we feel or we believe that parents can't mentor us well or rightly. And so we usually prefer listening to third parties. And that is the reason why you need someone like Kennedy. Honestly, I sit back, I've been watching him. This is the second time I have been in a gathering where he will speak to people, you know, and majority of them are youth, and I love it. You will not understand. I was speaking to someone who said, Mommy, you're here. I thought this session or this kind of event was for younger people. And I laughed, I smiled. And we got talking, and I told him, you will not understand. Should I go into what I have experienced in life? I have done 31 years in banking. I have just retired from the banking sector. And thank you very much. My last baby is 24 years old. Wow. And honestly, career is something that you really need to know much. It's much deeper than what you know or you think. Some people don't even know their career path. He's giving it to us, I will say free of charge, because he's charging nothing. Honestly, a lot of people do not know their career path. Some would want to change. People have made mistakes. People who have retired, people who are still working, they do not know their career path. Which way to go, they don't have it. So when are you going to retire? I mean, when you retire, what do? You just sit back at home. I was coming from a funeral this morning, one of my former colleagues who lost his wife, and I want to believe that she passed. Probably because after he lost his job for 2 years, he retired 2 years ago, he had nothing to do. Nothing. He was a banker, so after the banking job, what next? How are you going to be feeding your family? Are you just going to sit back home, fold your hands? So this session is very important, and I think you need to have a mentor. You have someone like Kennedy who is giving it to you. He's a young man, very young, and I appreciate what he does. We have very old professionals, bankers, career men and women who have it, who have what it takes to speak to you, but they are not doing it. Even our parents are not doing it because they are busy chasing money. Please, mine is just a piece of advice to everyone seated here. Make it a point of duty to ensure that you follow Kennedy. He's not my brother. This is the second time I'm meeting him. But what he's doing, I find what he's doing very important and very useful in your lives. It is still very early in the day for you now. Very, very early. I'm almost 60. It's very early for you to speak to someone like him, to find someone who will mentor you adequately so you do not make mistakes. It's still early for you in the day to change your career path. So thanks very much, Kennedy. I'm not going to say much, more than this, but thank you very much. And keep doing what you are doing.
Thank you.
I pray that the good Lord will continue to strengthen you. You will not falter. He will strengthen you and give you the wisdom and knowledge with which you will use to mentor the young ones seated here. You are doing so much. You will not fail, you will succeed. And everyone seated in this room will succeed because you have found the right path. Not everybody would waste, I will call it, some of them will say waste of time, would want to come and sit here to listen to you. But please speak to your friends. You need a mentor. And you need someone like him. You need someone else. If you decide not to go with him, please look for a mentor. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
My name is Obi.
Sorry, speak a little louder.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Obi. I have two questions, basically. The first is, for me personally, I'm asking, how do I need your idea on how do I maintain adrenaline rush and good structure. No, for real. For someone like me that is building a community in order to have a consistent development and achievement. The reason why I asked this first question is because my age range, this generation, basically, we have this initial gra that we call it, right? Especially when it comes to success. When we hear things like, think like a billionaire, how to get rich kind of stuff, or we're building something and want to quickly come and be a part of it. But I've looked at it in my years of, I plan whatever I am to do every day for the past 2 years of my life, right? I write a daily plan. I have a series of books where they are written down. I'm going about, I realized that getting halfway into the day, like the adrenaline rush is dying off.
Yeah.
And not just into the day, into the month, into the year. And I'm like, yeah, I'm making progress, but it's not substantial in quote and unquote. So how do I maintain that adrenaline rush that when I get up, like, if I don't do this thing, I will die. That kind of thing. No, for real now, guys, let's chill. For real. And that brings me to my second question because it's a privilege to be here. I've been following you for 2 years now, 2023. Someone told me about you. I think they were in the round table, I think so, thereabouts. So I've been following you and I've been hoping to one day sit at your teachings, right? And this is my first time, right? So the second question is this. Don't laugh. Do you mind if I have a picture with you after the session?
Second one is easy, sure. The first one is not that easy. Your first question. Thank you. Obi, sit, please.
All right.
How do you sustain adrenaline rush? I understand what you mean when you say adrenaline rush. So maybe start by eating 10 cubes of sugar every morning, afternoon and night. But seriously, adrenaline rush, let's continue with that term. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And the reason why we feel that way when we start out something new, it's more like dopamine. That's probably, what you're looking for, is the novelty of it. And novelty, it tricks our brain to release dopamine and we feel really excited. But the thing with dopamine is it wears off over time. It wears off. Like if you sustain those dopamine levels across time, I mean, you'll probably die, literally. So, but it points to the source of where the things you're doing come from. If it comes from, and usually things that make you feel like dopamine rushes, maybe you're doing something because you think it will make you look good, because you think it will make you wealthy, because you think it will give you status and fame and reputation. And of course, those things make you really excited in the moment. But they are not sustainable. Like the pursuit of those things are not sustainable. First reason why is because it would never happen on your timeline. If you ask everybody, of course, every artist wants to blow with their first album. Every podcaster wants to get 1 million views on their first, release. Every startup founder wants to raise at $1 billion valuation in the first 6 months. It rarely ever happens. Almost never happens. So that's the first. Structurally, it is unsustainable to build with adrenaline rush in mind. You have to think like what happens in most of the instances. Good things take a lot of time. Even things that seem like overnight success, that make you seem like, oh my God, like I want this right now. It's years and years and years of work. And some people might be lucky, hold on. Some people might be lucky and they have that very early. And, God bless them, that's great. But a lot of people who have that very early, they also pay the price because the sort of character that you need to preserve it long term is not there. So adrenaline rush is unsustainable. You should replace that with some sort of long-term vision for, this is what I'm trying to create. And I'm going to be patient till whenever I get to this point. That way, you live your life more sustainably. You don't wake up at 4 a.m. and you're drinking 10 cups of coffee every day because you want to. You can't build anything great from a place of ephemeral excitement, right? Because excitement would not hold sway when things are not exciting. And things would not be exciting so many times. If you're trying to build anything worthwhile, it would not be exciting most of the time. So you can't rely on excitement. You can't rely on adrenaline when you receive bad news, when you hear no from a customer, when you have almost €0 in your bank account. Adrenaline cannot help you in that instance. The only thing that will help is, I have a sense of why I started this and I want to continue. I feel really terribly right now. Maybe I should just go take a nap. I'll continue tomorrow because I need some sleep and I'll continue tomorrow. Hopefully I'll feel better. Maybe you surround yourself with people that when you're going through a tough time, you can tell them, I'm going through a bad time, and their presence can help you lift up your mood. But that intrinsic dopamine is so unreliable and it wouldn't last a long time. Like give it a month, it's done. And now you have to. So if all you were basing what you're doing, was on the dopamine levels you feel, then you start to feel like a failure when it's no longer there. You start to feel like an imposter. Oh my God, maybe I never really loved this. But the only thing is your mindset was just wrong. You thought it would be easy. You thought it would come to you early. And it never happens. If it comes to you early, be very suspicious of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So in addition,
a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay, quickly.
In addition to that, like she said something about having multiple things that you're doing. When I was much younger, I desired to do a lot of things. Like they used to call me this jack of all trade, master of none kind of stuff. Now, my idea was this. I now got to realize, like a reality check, that, okay, you can't actually do these things, everything. So I said, okay, why not create a community whereby the things I desire to do, I have people do them, but in that community whereby I'm their master, like I'm someone they report to. But now, I want to know what's your idea basically concerning that, because I own a dance community, but in that dance community, we have like a studio for media, we have a set of people that are into fashion branding and all of that. Now, I want to know, is it substantial or sustainable enough to have that kind of thing around, like hovering around? Because we dance, we perform in schools and all of that, events and all of that. So, but we try to also go into things like car videography, food, media, and all of that.
Yeah.
And all those media works. You understand what I'm saying? But I want to know your context in the kind of thing. What does someone like me now, how do I put my focus in that kind of thing? Because I believe success, and focus is the currency for success, right?
Yeah.
How do I establish a substantial focus? And what should I focus more mainly on to establish what I'm doing?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. I'll need to get more context to even understand what you're trying to achieve, and maybe we can chat after the lecture. So I'll be able to give you a much more intelligent response. Yeah. And then we'll come here.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Kennedy. I just want to first of all appreciate Miss Mother. She's the one that actually made sure that I came here, so I'm really grateful for that. Thank you, Ma. So I have two questions. The first question is, you've spoken about in being an overnight success. Like most people are not overnight successes. It's like built up progress. So what happens if you are actually an overnight, like you do something that you don't expect to blow up, and it blows up, and you don't know how to manage it? Like, how do you actually go about that? For example, I made a post once about my results in school on LinkedIn, and prior to that time, I'm used to maybe 10 likes, 2 likes. I didn't really mind. It was okay for me. And then I came online and I saw 9,000. I was like, Jesus. And I tried to, okay, should I send a newsletter now that everybody knows me? I'm not popular. What should I do? And I actually found myself struggling. So how do you, if you find yourself in a situation where you suddenly become an overnight success, how do you manage that? And then the second question, you spoke about your government teacher that helped you in school. It's no disrespect to him or anything, but there's no way that you'll be earning. You spoke about earning as one of the things. So, and in that kind of position, you might not necessarily be earning as much as someone in another field. I mean, we are in times where people like big things. We like beautiful things. So, what if your interest is in a field where earning is not very, very possible like that, or you're not able to earn as much as other people do?
So what's the
Thank
question
you.
on this second one? What?
Okay, how would I structure the question now?
I understand what you mean, but what's your
Yeah.
question? Yeah.
Okay, so if you find yourself in that situation where you're helping people in that small, you're actually building a legacy, you're learning, you're doing all of that, but then the earning factor is not matching the rest, what then do you do?
Okay, so on the first one of overnight success, congrats on your results, congrats on 9,000 likes. But that's not overnight success. You had a viral moment,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
kind of thing.
and that's it. Like maybe success would be every time you post, you have 9,000 likes for 3 years, something like that, you know, or, so, I mean, everyone has people who use Twitter, who are power users, everyone has probably had a viral moment, and I feel like when I go on Twitter, people are tweeting so it can be viral. You can tell you're lying, but you're tweeting because you want to be viral, but let's not even get into that. So it also boils down to how do we define what success is, right? And a lot of people lower the bar so much for them. And we also, the society that you all live in is one that is, it's terrible when it comes to defining success. You know, everyone thinks they are successful because they have mediocre achievements and they're able to live in a house and to ride in a car and to eat 3 times. Jesus Christ. Let that not be our definition of what success is. So we need some level of taste. Like, what does success mean for you? It's not those things. It's really not those things at all. So if you are an overnight success and you don't know what to do with it, and I don't want to use this your example because I've told you, it's not, but you don't know what to do with it, it means you're not ready. It genuinely means you're not ready. And there needs to be a little more incubation. And like I told you, overnight successes rarely happen. I struggle to see anyone who is an overnight success. You might be lucky enough that you've been doing something for very long and maybe you start a new initiative and it takes off. But you didn't start there. You didn't just wake up and start that and it took off. You've been doing other types of work that have incubated and prepared you for this new thing that seems like it's an overnight success. But if you get success and you don't know what to do with it, you're definitely not ready and you don't deserve it. And it's not even an insult. You don't deserve it because for your own self-preservation, because there's nothing worse than success in the wrong hands. It would destroy you first before it destroys other people. So in our prayers, let's pray to not have success that we're not ready for. And for the second question, I don't know, honestly, if you find that you're really drawn to and you can't do anything but work in an industry, in a field where the commercial potential is not as high, but you're convinced that that's what you should be doing, then sure, that's what you should be doing. There's no question about it. For my teacher, for example, I don't think he ever sat down to draw a matrix like, okay, I'm going to help people. I don't think he thinks of it as helping people. I don't think he thought he helped me. I don't even think he thought he was doing his job. Because if he came to work every day to do the job that was given to him and go home every day, he would not waste his time doing it. But that's just who he is. That is when he's most alive, when he's discipling people, when he's calling potential forth from people. So when you're doing work like that, yes, you might not be as wealthy as you want to be. Yes, you might even struggle to meet some of your bills, but there's no amount of money that anyone can give you that will pull you out from doing that. That will pull you out of doing that work. But of course, maybe be smart, maybe start a business on the side, maybe, I don't know, something. But there's no price that is high enough, in exchange for what it is deeply you should be doing. There's no price that's high enough, no matter how alluring it seems.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Kennedy. So my name is Folashayo, and this is going to be like a bit of a vulnerable question, and yeah. So I graduated with an accounting degree, a good one, and I've always had the mindset that, once I set my mind towards something, I'm going to get it done very well. So I came to the real world, and I started working, and in 2 years, I realized that I wasn't doing so well in the accounting. The deep work aspect that you mentioned today, I had to reflect on that. I realized I would put so much work and all of that, and it wasn't really coming well. So I was like, okay, maybe if I try Big Four, maybe I'll be more challenged. I tried it, I got it, But the performance aspect, I try my best, but then I know there's more to me. I know I'm not doing what I want to do. Okay, in line with getting jobs and all, I found writing in the process, and I was like, finally, I'm not a failure. I'm being honest. Because I've always felt like I'm trying, I'm failing. So I found writing and want to always write and bring life to words. People read and be like, wow, how are you thinking this way and all of that. So with time, I was like, okay, maybe I should go into writing, and then I found communications. Someone asked me, a partner in where I work, and it was like, okay, so what do you want to do in 5 years or 10 years? What do you want to be? And I had it just felt like a wall. I just kept on hitting a wall, nothing. There's this failure in my head. I'm like, what if I go into writing communications, and at first I'm doing it, what if I fail? So I'm asking this question that for those that want to transition and they are scared that, okay, I'm in a part now, I'm doing my best, it's not really showing, it doesn't feel like I'm doing well, and then I want to transition into another part. What if my optimistic mindset is not like, what if you fail again? And I'm asking, what if?
Thank you for the question. So please hold on to the mic. When you say, with what you're doing now and you're not performing well, is it the case that if you were performing well, you would actually like it a little bit more?
Okay, if I was performing well, in this particular work, I just felt like maybe if I was performing more, I won't have known that I would want something else. So I wasn't performing well, and in the process, I found writing, and I'm like, okay, this is where I actually find fulfillment. Or when I'm working, okay, in Big Four, for example, you're working and everybody's serious with their work. I'm working, and then I look around sometimes, I'm just like, God, I beg. This is not what I want. So there's that. Sometimes I'm doing deep work, as you said, and my brain just goes off. I'm just off. But then I have to keep working because I have to earn money.
Yeah. So is it the case that the tasks you're given, let's say you have to do a, DCF, you're just really bad at it? Like, and sorry to use really bad in relation to your work, but one, you don't enjoy it, but secondly, like, there's just so many mistakes. Your analysis, your models just always turn out bad results. These things don't balance. Is that what it is?
Okay, sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And have you made attempts to get better at those specific things that you're not?
Exactly, so that's what it is. So in areas, okay, I'm not doing so well in this, I'm trying my best to do better, but it just feels like nothing is really coming out of it.
Are you taking courses? Are you trying to level up when you're not doing very well?
Yeah, joining communities, taking courses and all of that, and we do a lot of trainings, and then there are times when the trainings are going on, and sometimes it just feels like my brain is not connecting some things together.
The reason why I'm asking all this is because I want to understand if it's like an interesting, because, it's accounting, so Accounting is accounting. There's no emotions involved. If you sit in front, it's numbers, you learn how to do specific things. So is it like I think if it's something that, I'm trying to probe. If you do it enough, I assume, even if I don't love it, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to do it as well. It's not one of those things that require, maybe you need passion to move up the ladder, to, diversify and all those things. But when it comes to doing the core work at a big four, no strings attached. You're just getting the work done. And the reason why I'm asking is there's a suspicion that I have that writing is that rebound. This person rejected you, but this one is around and available. So I'm just going to roll with this guy. Maybe not. Maybe it's actually something, and this thing seems to be, well, at least people say they like. But the thing with writing is it's also very subjective, And I'll actually like to read what you write, and you can send it to me, and if you permit me to give you honest feedback, I will. Because, if you're writing for an audience that is not all that, of course they'll say it's great. I'm not trying to say you're not doing well, but this might be an opportunity for you to actually face this problem head on and conquer it, even if you don't love it. But it might be a challenge to yourself. This accounting thing, I don't need to love it. You need to start from there. I don't need to love it. I just need to prove to myself that I can learn this thing. I can do it well. And if at that point you say, I'm going to quit, you're quitting from a place like, I conquered this before I quit. And it even gives you a lot, the internal stature that you have is a lot more strengthened, because you know that whatever it is you're going to do, when you encounter challenges, if you think you're not going to encounter challenges with writing, let me be the first to break it to you. You will. You would encounter, I don't even need to list all the challenges. Of course, the default with writing is literally everyone is not going, by default, most people don't read anything writers put out. There's so many books that are written every year, no one reads them. So just expect that that's the null hypothesis, that no one is going to read what you put out. That level of despair is even going to be much worse. So with everything I know, I don't think I have the full picture. My recommendation is this thing, no strings attached, go all in on it. If there are specific areas where you struggle, learn it. Like, you can learn it. There's tutorials, there's videos. Pretend like you're starting afresh. With everything you know, pretend like you're starting afresh, and I want to get good at this thing. Treat yourself like a beginner, and then rise to the top from there. And maybe you might be a little hard on yourself because you expect a certain outcome and you're not giving yourself that. So maybe reduce that and then build incrementally. But my recommendation is, I definitely think you should conquer this and not run away from this fight. That's genuinely what I think. But I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we can do a few more, but there's a lot of hands. Oh boy, okay. The lady up there. Yes, her.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kachi. So my question is,
Please hold the mic closer to your mouth.
Okay, how do you align your career goals and the legacy you are looking to build with the legacy that one's parents have built? In the sense that there's a family business, there's wealth, and it's being passed down to you, but you don't necessarily want to walk in that path. How do you manage that, or how do you navigate that?
Were you at the last lecture?
No, I missed that.
Okay, well, business is not legacy. I described this, and that's what I was asking. Because I described this, a legacy is not cars or money or businesses. Those are gifts from your parents to you, and you use that to then, hopefully, it makes the process of figuring out your legacy easier. But what I described in the last lecture was, I made reference to the Old Testament and how the men in that generation understood what legacy was. They understood that the legacy is a tangible, spiritual, cognitive, and moral dimension that is passed down from generation to generation. And I gave example of, Abraham. What did Abraham give Isaac? Abraham gave Isaac the promise. What did Isaac give Jacob? The blessing. And, when the blessing was given to Jacob and Esau came back and was crying and was deeply bitter, he couldn't just bless him because he had given out the blessings he had, and Because it's not just something you say with your mouth, or it's tangible, it's real. And they knew that when they transferred it, it meant something. So and when we have children, yes, we should try to leave them those things if we can, but a lot of legacies are way more tangible than that. You know, it is the sort of culture that you imbue them with, how you raise them. So in terms of, you know, how do you align what you're doing with your parents, it's not your responsibility. You have absolutely no business. Figure out what you want to do with your life. If they are willing to give you money and a business, you know, thank them for it. But that shouldn't subject your life to what it is they've done. You know, figure out a way to manage it. Maybe hire someone who you trust to run the business so you can continue to work. But it's not your responsibility, you know, to submit your life to that, especially if that's not what you want to do. If that's what you want to do, all fine and good. But don't feel like that's what you have to do. It's not a good deal. It's not a good deal. Okay, then we'll take two more. All right, the lady over there, way back. And then the gentleman here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Kennedy. I don't have a question. I want to throw more light on what she said. So I have a brand that is less than 3 months, and it's already making 7 figures. So this brand started from the burden that there is a gap between young professionals and mentors. Now, first off, I started off with a community of young professionals where I offer career branding services for them. But then, because of the comment she made, I've sat on that, and I figured out that we have lots of experienced senior professionals, and they don't have an identity, or they do not see the need to talk about what they are doing or the impact they have made. They have so many years of experience, and we don't see them. Now, this business, I've not spoken about it on any platform, not even on social media. I've coached from referrals, and I have clients that have worked in Deloitte, Coca-Cola, Bogo Beverages, Samsung, that's senior professionals. And when I sit with these people, I find out that most times they don't self-reflect. So part of the services that I offer, when I sit with them, I also observe that they just do this career thing as a means to an end. There's no sense of fulfillment. Sometimes they don't even think that there's something they can make out of what they are already doing. Yeah. So after sitting with them and offering those services, and I also use the opportunity to ask them for mentorship for those that I align with, right? So because I also had experienced that challenge of having mentors, looking for mentors and not finding, or seeing people that want to charge me, and then I don't have money to pay. So when I offer these services, which are paid for, in exchange, even at the end of the service, they are satisfied with my services. They offer me mentorship without me paying for it. And then with this, I have lineup of mentors who can mentor the young professional communities that I already have based on their skill set. Yeah. Now again, on mentorship, I heard him say something about mentorship. One thing also we neglect is peer-to-peer mentors. We most times look up to people that might be out of reach, or people that might not give us the attention and that whatever it is we are building will require. But we have people who already love us, who can give us the attention we are looking at, or who can even see our vision beyond what we are building. But most times we neglect them and keep seeking people that cannot give us what we are looking for. So this is me putting this out here. I'm open to that. I write processes for businesses. This is aside the consulting I do. And I have evidence of brands that I've done that for. So if you're interested, to have a community with me where we exchange resources and skills, you use your skill to offer a service to maybe a member of the community. I offer mine to you, and without payment, we can work on that. So if you're interested, you can meet me after this lecture. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the gentleman here.
Good day, everybody. My name is Owen, and my question is relative to the question of 2 career paths, basically. So, how do I balance building a strong personal brand in an industry while also excelling in my day-to-day work without overshadowing the other? And then, sorry, for more context, my day-to-day work is totally different from what I like. It's basically, they are basically different industries, basically.
Tell me more. What's your day-to-day work? And
Okay, so I currently work I currently work in energy tech, and then basically what I want to do is creative direction. But then I also have passion for energy tech, so I don't necessarily want to stop one for the other. Sugar.
Okay, so what's your question? I know you said it, but what's your question?
So basically, how do I balance it without sabotaging one of them?
How do you balance both without... I mean, that's a very practical question that comes down to time management. If you... And maybe this is an example of tinkering but going deeply, which I am a fan of. You have to be efficient with how you manage your time. Maybe you can't have the luxury of finishing your day by 6 p.m. and going to sleep at that time. So it means you have to do extra work. It means you have to spend more time learning in both directions so one doesn't suffer. It's so easy for one to suffer. If you're not intentional, it's so easy to drop the ball on one. So it would require to be like switched on, like 7 days of the week, figuring out how you can and in what proportion you want to pour into both of them. But it's really it's a time management question. It's a very practical time management question. If you're sure that you're deeply interested in both, then figure out on a daily basis how much time you allocate to each, how to also work fast, how to work quickly and fast on each of those so you're locking more time for yourself and you're not spending more time than necessary on things that you can do much quicker than you want to. That's what I think. I think we should do one more question. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Thank you. Hi, Kennedy. Hi, everybody. My name is Joan. So I'm kind of disagreed with the example you gave on Kachi's question on how she can align her values with her parents' legacy. Yes. So I want you to a little bit shine more light based on these two examples that are biblical and spiritual, based on how you describe legacy. Moses to Joshua and Elijah to Elisha. So the same goal, two different people, but in a way I think their values and their personalities, or maybe their God-given gifts, found a way to shape their purpose, and in a way the expected outcome became reality.
You're about to bring out the debater in me for a second. I'm like, Kennedy, control yourself. But you can't compare the examples you just gave to a parent who had a business. Maybe they had 5 shops and they want to pass it down to their children. Like the physical and spiritual weight of both things are incredibly different. If anything, it's even buttressing what I said that, legacies and what's passed down is not things. It's not money. It is for mantles, if I'm to use a religious term. That's what it is. And in these instances you describe, that's exactly what was passed down. There is, take my people to the promised land. I'm not going to be able to do it, but I'm passing this on to you, and you're going to be the person who gets this done. And that's not necessarily equal to building a business to take care of our family and to be ensure that we're good, which is a very noble endeavor. That's very different. They have very different spiritual weights. But like I said, if it falls in your lot that that's what you want to do, and you feel like you could build a meaningful life out of it, and you could pursue things that are just more than every day you're waking up and you're going to the shop or the business or the office to open it up at 7 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. You could weave around a mission that is way more than that, then that's perfectly fine. But my response to her was, if it's not what you want to do, if it's not something that you feel like you want to spend your life working on, then why go down that miserable path of doing that? It's not, it's a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. So the examples you gave are even the sort of legacies I want to see more people living out, living out. You take a generational question. Your people have been in bondage for 400 years, and you're the person who would say, I would take them to the promised land. Dare to do that. I want each and every one of us to do that. Those are the sorts of legacies that I hope that we aspire towards. Those are the sort of examples that I hope we are inspired by when we choose what to stake our lives on, not what makes us feel good. Does that answer your question?
Jesus. So, family, let us say business is just like for my family. Then the other examples I'm giving is like generations, nations. It's like, in a way, it does not still deter the fact that my family is also equally important, even though I'm not liberating generations and nations.
Is there someone who wants to help me? Let's go back to the person who asked the question. Yes. What do you think about what she said? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay, so let me rephrase it.
Okay.
She thinks that it is not fair that, I said you should do whatever you want and, ignore your family legacy if that's not what you want to pursue. And she has a great point. On the smaller scale, your family is just a much more individualized unit of generations and say the Israelites, for example, 4 million people. But your family is a much more closely knit. So the preservation of your family legacy in that sense should matter as much as the preservation of the legacy of the Israelites, Am I interpreting your stance correctly? So that's what she says, but I'm curious what you think. And she disagrees that the idea that you should figure out what you want, independent of what your family wants, makes sense. Do you agree or disagree?
Okay, so I'll speak from my experience. Does that help? So my mom runs a food business. And if there's anything with food business is that it is very tasking. In fact, now that I'm even speaking of it, I'm even having PTSD. That's what it does. And so for me is that this business has trained all her children, put us through schools, one of the best schools, giving you everything that you need to survive in life. And while there's that, and I'm still very grateful for that, mind you, however, I feel like I want to do my own thing. I want to figure, and so what Kennedy said, it was really liberating for me because I feel like I was even having a discussion with someone here, Victory, who is in the same, we're experiencing the same kind of thing. And so what he said for me was liberating because I want to figure out my own life. I'm grateful for all that you've done. I'm grateful for, how you've, I assist her, but I want to figure out my own life. I want to succeed and fail at other things. And so, like he said, if they support you with money, that's fine. If they don't, I know that, I've made my own choice and I'm going to live with it. I'm going to live with the consequence or whatever comes from that. So I hope that this helps sort of, but, I very much, I've forgotten what I was going to use, but I very much help or, I'm sorry, my brain has frozen.
Okay, well.
Can I say something, please? Since you asked if we I think I know what she wants to hear. This is what I have to say. No. I mean, let me try to answer your question. So I think pursuing your legacy does not stop you from doing the business. You can take the business. If I were, I would take the business and be smart about employing people to run that business for me. I would then supervise and pursue my legacy. Do you understand? He also mentioned that you cannot, there's a possibility of not taking the business. Does not, so it's an advice. You can also take the business, but be smart about employing people. Create a system where the business functions on its own and then you pursue your legacy. Or, you just manage your time. That's my opinion.
Awesome. Well, if the person who asked the question feels liberated, my job here is done. Thank you so much, guys. Next month, we're discussing purpose. I really encourage you to not miss it. I really, 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 really do. Think of these 3 lectures as 3 parts of one long-form lecture. So it will be a great way for us to tie it together. We would also not be using this venue for our next lecture because, the facility is having their 40th anniversary. So we'll communicate our venue for next month. It will be somewhere in Lekki. So looking forward to seeing you all next month. If you have any questions, follow-up questions, as some of you did the last time, please feel free to email me. I want to see you here next month. We want to also, the venue we'll use next month probably can't even take all of, I guess, probably won't take all of us. But, tell people, invite people who you think should be a part of this, lecture series, who you care about. Thank you so much, guys. God bless you.